Welcome everybody to the next edition of EduSmart's Professional Development Series. My name is Devanshi Mathur, and thank you all so much for joining us in the new year for our new schedule of webinars. Throughout this webinar, please use this chat for all questions, comments, concerns, and I will be going ahead and monitoring that. We have a Q&A session at the very end, so every question and comment you have, I'll make sure to feed that to Lisa at the very end. But I know Lisa has a very interactive webinar planned for you today, so you'll have plenty of chances to chat with us. So to start this year off on our best foot forward, we have our fan favorite with us here today. Lisa is known for offering challenging, creative, hands-on science educator workshops. She has over 34 years of experience in science education, with over 25 years in presenting conference sessions and workshops for science teachers. She has worked as a classroom teacher, department chair, online certification teacher, virtual school curriculum designer, independent science consultant, and science curriculum director. And here now, Lisa has joined us at our team, and she's in charge of all of the content here at EduSmart. So anything science and education related, Lisa's been there and done that. So if you could please give the best, warmest applause we've given at 2023 for Lisa.
Thank you, Devanshi, and welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about vocabulary, and I want you to participate in some of the things we're going to do. I don't want to just talk to you for half an hour. So there's some built-in exchange here where you can participate, but like Devanshi said, please feel free to type something in the chat. She'll keep up with it for me and interrupt if it's something pertinent to what we're talking about right this second. If not, we'll talk about it at the end because we have built-in time for question and answer. So there we go. My clicker wasn't working. So we know how important vocabulary is to science. And it's a little bit different than using vocabulary in math or ELA, just because there are so many words and a lot of them are new. So one of my best friends is an ELA coordinator, so she's always making me read books. And this was one of them, Teaching Word Meanings, because she thought it might help me as a science director. And I like this quote: vocabulary knowledge is knowledge. The knowledge of a word not only implies a definition, but also implies on how that word fits into the world. And those of you from Texas know sometimes it's the other vocabulary that's in a question that the kids get stuck on, and they don't know how to answer the question because they don't know something that's not a science content, but like an associated word. I can remember one year on the grade 5 test, there was a question that said cement, and a lot of kids didn't know what it was because they called it concrete. They didn't know it was the same thing. And so vocabulary is important, and of course our content science vocabulary is incredibly important. When you talk about what's important in vocabulary or why it's important, you have to base it on research. And so this is from a journal article in the Reading Teacher, which says students need to be explicitly taught methods for intentional vocabulary learning. That if you want it to be effective, that instruction needs to include teaching specific words to support understanding of text, teaching word learning strategies that they can use independently, and using word play activities to motivate and engage them in learning new words. So we do most of this in EduSmart, and we're adding a little bit more to the part 3 here, where we already teach specific words. We have different word learning strategies, and I'm going to talk today additionally about how we're going to add some word play activities. So when words are easy to understand, and when you introduce explanations and context, the knowledge of those words increases and word meanings are better learned. And at EduSmart, we're incredibly intentional about vocabulary instruction. I don't know if everyone here is an EduSmart customer, and so some of this may be a little bit of a review, but just to show you our intentionality, we're going to talk about some places where students use vocabulary, one of which is in our instructional module companion. The first part is a note-taking guide. So this reinforces important vocabulary. For this one, I don't remember what grade it is. It looks like might be 5th grade. I'm not sure. But dormancy, temperature, and adaptation, that these are all words we want to make sure they know and know how to use them in context. We also have a graphic organizer in the instructional module companion. So this one's from 8th grade about stars. And they are supposed to put information in here, stars are made of, and then fill in the rest of the sentence. They've given them some words that we need to use from a bank up here, up in the table. But of course, we also want them to use words like color, luminosity, that are up there too. And then finally, our journal prompts also are heavily focused on vocabulary. So this one is about Newton's first law, about, depending on how you pull the tablecloth off the table, that some items will remain behind. I guess these are candles. And so they have to use vocabularies, especially balance and unbalanced forces, to explain how this happened. And then, of course, we have our word explorer, which is our separate vocabulary instruction piece. And so I pulled some examples from 5.8b, which is the water cycle here in Texas. If there are people here from Florida, I'm sure this is in there at some grade level too, but I only pulled up the Texas one. The content in it should be the same. I'm just not sure what grade level that is in Florida. So what you see when you pull up Word Explorer is you'll see vocabulary cards, that there's usually a graphic associated with it. Like this one for evaporation has arrows coming up, because we also want them to be able to associate the word with an image. And the first task they do in Word Explorer is to choose visual examples. So which of these pictures are visual examples of evaporation? And there can be more than one answer. There can be 1, 2, or 3 correct answers for this. And in Texas, this is a way for them to practice that multiple select for having more than one correct answer. So once they choose the visual examples, they'll have a fact sheet here where there are statements, 4 statements, and 1 to 3 of these will be a true statement, and at least one of them will be false. So they're reading statements that have the word evaporation or evaporates inside, and they have to distinguish which of these are facts. And then lastly, in our Word Explorer, we have a closed activity where they have to drag and drop words from up here to make a sentence that's coherent using some of these vocabulary words. Anyone here not a customer of EduSmart? I want to make sure you don't have any questions. Is there anything in the chat, Devanshi?
So far, no, but we do have Mary Tweedy commented in Florida, the water cycle is in grade 5, SC
Okay.
5E71.
Okay. Yeah, if I had known that Mary was in here, I would have just had her jump in and tell me what it was. So she probably has it memorized. So thank you, Mary. And sorry I didn't put that in there. I should have put the Florida standard in there too. So before I tell you some of the new vocabulary things we're going to be adding to EduSmart, I want to make sure that you have a time to talk about, in addition to EduSmart, I know you use other vocabulary strategies. So I've put a Jamboard link, and Devanshi's going to put it in the chat. Have you already done that? Okay, so I'm going to stop this and go over to the Jamboard. I can see one person has joined, so I'll wait just a little bit. This is one way I'm trying to make this a little more interactive. Okay, here comes some more people. How many people do we have live here, just so I know?
We have 26 participants. A few of them are on their phones.
Okay, might be harder to do on your phone. So if you're on your phone and you don't want to try to mess with this, you're just welcome to watch. So if you're new to Jamboard, there's a menu over here to the right side. I don't know if you can see my screen and yours, but underneath the arrow that's in the black circle, there's something called a sticky note. And if you click on a sticky note, it'll pop up and you can type in it. And when you hit save, it will show up as a Post-it note on the screen. So think about some things you do in your classroom or some things you've done in the past that help kids learn content and vocabulary. I can't see what's in progress. I can only see after you hit the OK button or the save button. Do we have anybody? There we go. Playing games as a routine review. Okay, do a Frayer model. So what kind of games do you play? Review games are great. Certainly is engaging for the kids. Make sure, there we go. Adding physical movement with words. That's good, especially for the younger ones, word art. I'm just dragging these around because they tend to stack up on top of each other. Graphic organizers. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones. Oops. Give a list of vocabulary and have them put them into categories and then label them. I call that list group label. Love that strategy. I should have put that up here because I have a really hard one. I have a writing and science workshop and it's in there. I didn't even think about pulling it out for this. But I give a group of words and you have to divide them into 3 categories and then give a title for how you classify them. That's a great strategy, vocabulary strategy. Anchor charts. These are all good. Matching activities. I guess since Devanshi told you I've been doing science ed for 34 years, it's not too much to say that I'm really old. Right? So when I think back to when I was in middle school, high school, or even elementary school, the way I had to learn vocabulary was the way I tell people not to do. And I'm sure some of you have similar stories of teachers who just wrote a list of words on the board and you had to copy down the words and look up the words in the back of the book and write down the definition. I can't imagine a way that is less likely to help someone learn vocabulary, because you can copy down something without even having it go through your frontal cortex and trying to make sense of it. Certainly we all know not to do that anymore. I'll go back to my presentation because we're mainly going to be looking at different kind of games, none of which I'm going to tell you is anything brand new, but I'm going to, might be new for some of you, but with all of you in here, at least some of you will know all of these as an example. But I want to start because of some things we're going to be adding to EduSmart for vocabulary for the next school year. That's the plan. Anyone else? Okay, I'll go back to my presentation, put it in present mode. And this is one that some of you had mentioned, to play headbands. So you saw with Word Explorer, when you pull up that list of words, that it has a word and a picture on it. So you can do this with the picture and the word, just the picture. You can set it up any way you want to play this game. And so it's probably better to print it out on cardstock because kids are going to tear something made on paper. And if you're lucky enough to have a building with a laminator, you can do that and then have them to use year after year. And so what kids are supposed to do is select a card without looking at it, either hold it up to their forehead, or you can use painter's tape so that they don't drop it. and then see what the answer is. And the idea is that students can ask yes or no questions until they get the correct term. As a teacher, you can set a limit for how many questions they're able to ask until, basically they have to shuffle their card back in the pile. My rules were always, you can't ask more than 5 questions because I taught high school. I wanted them to not waste time on, am I green? To ask a specific pointed question. But with the younger ones, you may want to, set a higher limit of questions. But if they don't guess it after X number of questions, they have to put it back in the pile. And the first person who gets 3 cards wins the game. You may want to change it to 5 if it's going too fast. And then I'm going to say this a lot, but as a suggestion, you can keep cards from previous standards in the stack, especially ones that they had trouble with, because then you can spiral that through and teach those harder words over and over. So I need a volunteer to play and to turn their microphone on. Do I have a volunteer? Okay.
This is Pat Garcia.
Okay. And anyone else can also unmute their mic to answer her questions if you want. So when she closes her eyes, I'm going to show a card and then I'm going to cover it up and let her open her eyes back again. So Patricia, are your eyes closed?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody see the card? And I'm going to cover it up. So now you can open your eyes. You can ask questions. I'm not going to set a question limit that it takes as long as it takes for this one. So you can ask yes or no questions. Does someone want to be the teacher here or another student to say yes or no, or do you want me to do it? Anyone in the chat?
It's you, Lisa.
Okay, it's going to be me. Okay. So Patricia, you can ask questions.
Is it living or non-living?
It has to be a yes or no.
Oh, okay. Does it breathe?
So pick one of those you can ask.
Okay. Does it breathe?
Oh, does it breathe? No.
Does it need sunlight?
No.
This is hard. Is it a process?
No.
Oh my gosh. Is it a type of animal behavior?
No. You can ask more broad questions like, is this an earth and space science word?
Is this about life science?
No.
Is it about earth science?
No.
Is it about physical science?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a push?
No.
Does it make things go up or down?
No.
Does it help an object move?
No.
What? Is it made of atoms?
Yes.
Is it an element?
No.
Is it a group of elements?
No.
Is it a part of an element?
No.
What you know? I'm trying to think of is it a property of matter?
Yes.
Will it sink? Is it a solid?
I don't know what to do if the answer could be yes or no. So
Is it does it exist in all 3 states of matter?
yes.
Is it water?
No.
Oh.
It's harder than I thought it was. I apologize.
I'm trying to think. Is it a metal?
No. Now realize that students, you've just been studying one topic, so they're not going to have all of science to pick.
Yeah. What I would do probably is, like, let's say we just covered a standard having to do with the periodic table. It would be the vocabulary related to the periodic table.
Correct. And
Okay.
so I said, oh, you said it was a physical property of matter. So
Mhm.
let's focus there.
Is this 5th grade?
No,
I'm trying to think if it's a Texas standard, that's why.
that word doesn't show up in the standards for 5th grade. You
Okay.
can talk about it, but it doesn't show up in the TEAGs.
Is it density?
It's related to density. I'll give you a hint.
Is it volume?
It is volume. Yay. So again, that one was harder than I thought, but you can see how just asking questions can help them kind of sort and classify information that's in their mind. And so you can get deeper into a topic than it looks like you can. These aren't just random words. These are the words that you want them to understand. Playing games is a good way to help them do that. Another game that's easy to play with EduSmart resources is 2 truths and a lie. Because we have these fact sheets that show up with the Word Explorer, where at least 2 of these are correct, sometimes 3, and there's at least 1 that's incorrect. And so if you only have to pick 2 truths and 1 lie, you have an extra fact, which is fine. And so what you can do is print out these fact cards for the words that are in the standard that you're covering. What you can do is have them work in small groups to take these strips of paper, and they have to select 2 true statements and 1 false statement. And they either need to, first they need to agree as a small group, and then they can either check with you or they can pull out their EduSmart information and use the LMS to check their work. So if they guess correctly, they get to keep that envelope or Ziploc bag in a separate pile. And the first team to have X number of correct answers, whether it's 5 or 10, you set that value, wins the game. And again, you can put fact cards from a previous session, mix it in so that they don't forget words as you move from topic to topic. So let's play here. We're just going to do it out loud. That I picked a fact card from high school biology, thinking we probably don't have a lot of high school teachers here. And so just to yourself, read these 4 statements and pick at least 2 that are true and 1 that's false. So 2 truths and a lie. You don't have to say what you're picking out loud, but I'm going to give you time to sort of think, what do you think the correct answer, 2 of the correct answers might be, and at least 1 of the incorrect answers. And I completely understand it may have been years since you studied enzymes, or maybe never, so that's okay. Everyone good? So here are the correct answers for this. So to sort of win the round, you only had to pick 2 of the 3 correct answers, but you had to know which one was incorrect. And I played with Devanshi yesterday, and she didn't know what some of the words in the facts were. So that makes it a little harder. But like I said, I picked one a little more challenging because I wanted you to think. So
I got to learn what an oncogenes are. It was nice.
She did. So this was easy for me only because I taught biology for 17 years and majored in biochemistry. So these are much easier when you use 3rd grade facts. So I probably should have done that to be nice, but decided to pick an upper level one for this. So you already have all the materials you need to put this game together. Okay, just from what we have inside EduSmart. If you're not an EduSmart customer, it doesn't mean you can't play this game. You're just going to have to come up with the facts yourself to put the game together. Another fun review game to do is Connect 4, calling this the EduSmart version. And how Connect 4 works is if you are playing the actual game, you have an 8 across and 6 down grid, and you put tokens up in the top. One person has red, the other person has white or yellow. I can't remember. It's been a while since I played. And the idea is to get 4 in a row. So you can do this as a team review game just with quiz questions. So I put one from EduSmart up here, but you can use any quiz question. It makes it a little more challenging to get 4 in a row if you make the game board smaller. So for upper grades, especially, I would make it 7 across and 5 down instead of 8 across and 6 down. It's a lot harder to get 4 in a row. And so you can give each group a set of 6 or so Post-it notes of the same color. So one team can be blue, one can be green, one can be yellow, etc. If you only have one color of Post-it notes, it will still work. Just have them draw something for their team, like this is this team that's a star, and you can put a star on each Post-it note, just so it's easier to tell them apart when it comes time to put their Post-it note up. And so you can show a question like this one. This diagram shows the Earth position relative to the sun at a certain point during the year. Which season would be experienced in the Northern Hemisphere at this time? And they choose from fall, spring, summer, winter. And so you don't tell them the answer until they all write down what they think it is. They have to come to a team consensus. And then you can tell the class the correct answer. And if they have a correct answer for their team, they can go put a Post-it note on the board anywhere they want. That's an unoccupied square. And so you keep doing this with quiz questions, and they try to set it up so that they have 4 in a row. And the first team that has 4 in a row wins the game. And again, you can throw in quiz questions from previous units just to keep them sharp and remembering content that you've already taught. So you're going to get a lot of resources after this. I'm trying to think of the right word. I have a lot of single pieces of paper with all the rules on it so that you have it handier than digging through the PowerPoint slides, which you'll also get. And one of the things in there is this sort of team sheet you can use to keep track. They put down their answer, they put down their team answer. If it's correct, then they can put a note on the board. And this keeps tracks of how many notes they put on the board. So it doesn't usually go as far as 10 questions before somebody wins the Connect 4. So this is one of my favorite games to play just because I play it with my family. But here's a way to play it with EduSmart materials. So if you're not familiar with the game Spoons, I'll go over the rules for that first and then go back to the EduSmart version. So the idea behind the game Spoons is you try to get 4 of a kind. And so you start with 4 groups of 4 of a kind. And so this is if you have 4 players. Each player has 4 random cards that are all mixed together. And the idea is you pass around the cards until you get 4 of a kind. And so you start with 4 that are not 4 of a kind, and you discard 1 to the left, and you pick up 1 from the person on the right. And so you keep picking up a card, seeing if you want to keep it. If you do, you pass on another one, and you keep doing this until you have 4 of a kind. You have 1 fewer spoon than players, so you can play with more than 4, but it may be hard to play with the big group in the classroom. And so you have 1 fewer spoon than you do players. And so if you're the first one to get 4 of a kind, what you're supposed to do is very sneakily try to take a spoon without anyone seeing you. And then what happens is when people notice you took the spoon, everybody grabs a spoon, and there's 1 person left out who didn't get a spoon. So that's how that works. So let me go back to how this would work with vocabulary. Within the Word Explorer, you already have an image, okay? You have the word, you have a definition of the word, and you have 4 facts, of which at least 2 of them are true. And so you have 1 of those facts that you can use. And this is your 4 of a kind, that your image matches the word, matches the definition, matches a fact. And so you need those 4 cards. And so the next image would also have 4 total cards, including the image. And if you put kids in teams of 4, that means you need 4 of a kind. So you'd have the giraffe, and then you'd have 3 other sets of cards. and you shuffle the cards. Everyone gets one at random. You play the game until you get your 4 of a kind. And the one that didn't get a spoon can say, prove it. You have to prove that your 4 of a kind is actually 4 of a kind. And so the person who said they had 4 of a kind has to show that they are. And how you keep score is the loser has to spell out the word spoons. You may not want to play this long enough to do that. But if you're the loser, you put an S down. If your original player was wrong and didn't get 4 of a kind, then they become the loser. So that's how this works. And here's what we're adding to our EduSmart vocabulary resources. Excuse me, is we're going to put printable cards. So we're going to have the picture, the word, the definition, and a true fact for every word in EduSmart that's in Word Explorer. So this is just one example. We're trying to, print them small enough that you can just get, the cards just quite big enough to play. And so they're a little bit small, but we didn't want to make you use a whole lot of paper to do this. It can also be printed in grayscale and the pictures will show up just fine. You don't have to print the color version. And then you can also use these terms for the other games like headbands. You can hold this up, so you have your headband cards ready. And so this is our prototype. We're still working on the final version. But there are a lot more that you could do with these cards. Some of you talked about a matching game. Even if it's just the picture and the word, that's a matching game. Keeping it down to just 2 cards that you have to match together will help your learners that need accommodations or are learning English. Can anyone jump in and give a suggestion for what else you could do with these cards while we're talking about this? Or put it in the chat and Devanshi will read it. No one. Okay. We're making these because we want to make sure you have resources to do a lot of different things, because with every unit, you don't want to play the same review game. So we were thinking y'all would already have games that you play that you could use with these, and we wouldn't have to give you a million suggestions for what to do.
We have one example in the chat.
Okay.
Where you provide examples of each.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Give an example of each.
For
Perfect.
short constructed responses, provide a prompt and use these words.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So people just may not want to share, but y'all know what to do with vocabulary. And so we wanted this as an offline printable resources that you could use to review terms to go along with your state standards. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to have to move more quickly. But my students always like this game. It's called Kaboom. And yes, I did play it with high school students. They like to play games as much as elementary students do. So here I picked words from a grade 8 standard in Texas. And what you do is you put some of the vocabulary terms on a craft stick and you label one of the craft sticks Kaboom. And you put them all into a cup. So you need 1 set per table. But if you're reviewing, like for the end of a unit, you could have 1 cup be one standard, 1 cup be a different standard. And then you just trade cups every so often. So they get to practice with these words. So whoever goes first just pulls out a stick and they have to define the word. Okay. If they think their answer is correct and everyone thinks their answer is correct, they can keep the craft stick. They just hold on to it. And you take turns, 1 craft stick at a time until somebody pulls out the Kaboom stick. And then that person has to put all of their sticks back in the cup, which means that someone will pull out a stick that it's already been defined, but now they're repeating it. So this is also good for kids with accommodations because they hear the definition more than once. And no one's ever going to get all the craft sticks because somebody's going to pick the Kaboom card or stick. And so the game can keep going. And again, feel free to throw in sticks from terms in a previous unit just to make sure they don't let those vocabulary words leak out of their brain. So, and then taboo is another game. This is one I always made the kids make the cards for me, that you give them the words that go at the top, and then they come up with the terms that you cannot say. And again, the way you play taboo is the person you have to give people clues to guess the word at the top, but you can't use the words underneath. So you try to make someone say force without using the word push, pull, move, or stop. And so I put the directions down there. I'm not going to read the directions for you, but I always just did this on index cards again and made the kids come up with the words, and they actually will probably be harder than you would have been. They'll pick words that are like really hard, that's hard to talk about it and not say what it is with those words. All right, and then I like dice rolling games. Sometimes I do this for a lab. I have one lab I did with elementary students where they had to figure out what would make an ice cube melt the fastest, but they had to, whatever they rolled is something they had to do to the ice cube. And they would write down observations, and then they would come up with which method made the ice cube melt faster. But this one is done with vocabulary words. So you can make a list of terms, and they just take turns. If I'm person number one, I have to do the word sediment. I roll the dice, and I roll a 6, so I have to ask a question using the word. So you go down the list, and the next time someone does sediment, they may roll a 2, and so they do something different with it. Connect the word to another vocabulary word. And so some of these are silly, create a movie title using the word. So you can change some of those if you think your kids will get too silly to do that. But anytime where there's like a random thing, then you can't say, you know, I'm always getting the hard thing to do because it's just random with a die there. And so lastly, just to show you the research on playing games, you already know that it's effective. But a Hasted and Marzano study says that it was a meta-analysis of other studies, and that 60 studies showed that the use of academic games is associated with a 20 percentile gain in assessment scores. Newer resources like this, using games to help students develop executive function skills. The games can help them develop skills like critical thinking, emotional control, sustained attention, and working memory. And lastly, with this book, Learning Through Redesigning a Game in the STEM Classroom, redesigning games like that taboo and the headbands, they facilitate deeper understanding of concepts as part of a design game system in STEM classes. So I think that's all I have, and it looks like I went a little bit over my time. And so I was going to open it up for questions. Let me stop sharing. There we go. And
Actually, Lisa, could you pull up that last slide one more time
sure.
with all our info on it?
Don't need to share that. Okay, so y'all can see the screen. This one.
Just the last slide. Some people were asking for your contact info.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just lisa@edusmart.com. So it's easy to remember. Can y'all see this?
No, you're not
Okay.
sharing.
It didn't share the screen then. Hold on. Let me go back to my Zoom screen. All right, now you can see it.
Perfect.
Right?
Yes.
I'll just leave this up then.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah. I'm lisa@edusmart.com. For all of these games, each one has a separate sheet with all the rules on it. Of course, they're just suggested rules. You're welcome to change to make it fit the age level of your kids. They're just some suggestions. So.
And I've shared a link to these resources that Lisa has shared. You'll also get an email in a week's time, not only with a copy of this recording and Lisa's resources, but also information on how to get your CPE certificate if you would like one. So yes, Lisa, we had a few people leave some comments for you in our chat.
Okay. No questions?
We have one question.
Okay.
But when you were sharing in the early part of your ideas, you had gone to like the headband stage. Ramona Park shared that when she's on her iPad, when they're on their iPad, I use 4 squares for definition, sentence, picture, and then the word.
Right.
Is an
Perfect.
idea.
Yeah.
We have one person anonymously put in the question, when do you use these games in your teaching and learning cycles? Like it seems
Okay, that's a good point, because sometimes you need to cover words before you do the explain, but most of the time you need to do the words as a review. So some of these they won't be able to do without knowing what some of the words are. I mean, you could try to play the spoons game, but they're probably not going to be able to make 4 of a kind. They probably could play the headbands game, but not as well as they could when they actually know what the words mean. But that's probably the best one to do as an explorer if you wanted to do an engage or explore activity before they know what they mean, or even taboo that could try to play without having to know too much about the definition of the words. But the other games that would have to be done after the explain part of your lesson, because they would have to know, like for the kaboom, you have to know the definition of the word or you can't play the game. And same with spoons, you can't put that 4 of a kind together unless you're able to do that. And then of course, if you're doing a unit review, vocabulary games are a great way to cover a whole bunch of content all in one lesson. But anyone else have strategies for when you use vocabulary? Like someone brought up that list group label. That's my favorite vocabulary strategy, but you also have to do that after you do explain, because you're wanting them to classify terms. So they have to know what they mean, be able to compare and contrast.
As we wait for people to type in or unmute themselves for sharing their ideas.
Yeah.
We have a comment, Jennifer Moore shared, I love this kaboom idea.
Okay, good. I say if you walk away with one idea from a PD, then it was worth your time. So.
And then we had some people asking if they can share your slide deck with other teachers in their school.
Yeah, we post this whole webinar online afterward. I don't know what else we post online because that's Devanshi's job, but anyone can come and watch the webinar after next week when they post it on the website. So
absolutely, yes. So I'll like Lisa said, in about a week's time, a recording of this webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel and on our website. So you're more than welcome to share that information from there. If you would like to use this material in conferences and other stuff some people are asking, feel free to reach out to Lisa at edusmart.com to get into the details of that.
Okay, I think that the printed materials has a EduSmart logo and stuff on it. So I'm not going to say you can't use it, but you need to give credit to EduSmart. Not that any of this is hugely original, but I am using information from EduSmart. Like this information came from Word Explorer. A lot of the other things came from Word Explorer. So if you're going to use something that is 100% from EduSmart, even this question here is an EduSmart question, that you need to keep the connection here to let them know where it came from. So
perfect.
But yeah, absolutely share the strategies. I didn't feel like there was that much new stuff. I just wanted to show you how to use it in the context of EduSmart Word Explorer terms, and quizzes.
And Ramona Parks writes, great workshop.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I think that wraps up all of our Q's and A's, Lisa.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming. Again,
Absolutely. With that, thank you all so much for joining us today. I know for a lot of y'all are very cold today, so I hope the rest of your evening is filled with warm feelings and warm beverages and warm meals. But seriously, Lisa and I would like to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy week to join us for our professional development sessions. We hope to see you for our next one, which will be happening in February. I've put the information in our chat. We hope to see you for that one. Otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and we'll see you for the next one. Thank you, team.